So Jon Stewart recently made his comeback, someone Liberals have always loved for calling out conservative hypocrisy and generally going after conservative lawmakers, and he even did that with his Apple TV show. I made a whole video about him doing this and how, there are limits to Liberals exposing conservative hypocrisy. But don't worry, the Liberals have now turned on Jon Stewart because he came back to host The Daily Show and he might have said some not so nice things about Joe Biden. Like, maybe this guy is too old to run for president, being like the oldest ever person to run for president. And it kind of shows. And yeah, they're not happy. They're saying he's both sidesing Democrats and Republicans. He's basically making the case for Donald Trump. They've had an absolutely insane reaction to him. Now, Jon Stewart is someone I would consider like lib left because he is more left leaning on certain issues. It's pretty clear, maybe because he's from an older generation and maybe because Gen Z are more left wing, like younger people like us are more left wing, that he seems more liberal. But it's like, the version of a good liberal, someone that we could agree with on the issues at least, but we might kind of disagree on maybe parts of the solution. And not even always a solution, mainly like the end goal of the society we want to live in is what we disagree on, because Jon Stewart has always struck me as a guy who does have like good ideas about things, who is, an entry point often into more left-leaning voices and stuff. So I always think he's been good for that. But Liberals have liked him as well. And I think what you're seeing here, and you're going to see in this video, is the clear separation from what a liberal is and what a left is. Because in American politics especially, they like to use the left to describe someone like Joe Biden, but also someone like Hassan. Like, they're all the left. Biden to him. And they would even associate me with Biden. Like, we are all leftists. Like, sometimes I get comments even on my YouTube channel, even though I have an English accent, talking about me voting for Democrats, even though I always make it clear that, I'm not a liberal in any way. And also, I know a few of you, when I say that, especially because I know a lot of people will be watching this video having not watched any of my content before, you might be confused, like, oh, I think I'm progressive, I think I'm liberal, what is the difference? So let's start with what the difference is. So a liberal person is often like pretty good on social issues, like they're pro-LGBT. They say they're against racism. At least they can recognize racism exists. They can recognize, I don't know, the police force in the US and UK are institutionally racist. The problem comes with liberals is a lot of it is performative and they fundamentally don't want anything to change. They just want things to be managed by them, because liberals fundamentally buy into neoliberalism in that they think they're the smartest people in the room and they should manage our democracy in a very, very centrist way. Don't do anything too radical. Just keep capitalism chugging along and maybe pass some social reforms or maybe equality laws. That's pretty much what a liberal is. Where a leftist is someone who might agree with liberals on the social side, but would actually want policies in place to actually achieve that sort of equality, right? So, for example, liberals recognise the police forces are racist, but disagree with defund the police, which is a recognition that these racist police forces have way too much money and don't need these high budgets for a variety of things, but because, they're often like an occupying force in minority neighborhoods and stuff. But also with liberals, they fundamentally buy into capitalist realism. Like, they agree with capitalism, and American liberals fundamentally also agree with the status quo of the world. Very, very pro-NATO, very, very pro-Israel, very, very pro-US imperialism everywhere. Every country that doesn't conform to the US global system of capitalism is a rogue state that can't be dealt with properly, because it's all about, their version of the world. They don't see anything really as changing that much because they don't want things to change. They want to manage the status quo. That's pretty much what liberals aspire to do. So when you have someone like Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton in the past running for president, they offer nothing apart from, I will manage this effectively. Essentially, they want to be the middle manager of the country. And you see this a lot in the UK. So Keir Starmer is the liberal leader of the Labour Party, right-wing liberal. And basically, his promise to voters isn't he's going to change anything. It's that he's going to do it better than the Tories. He essentially is going to be a Tory, but be more competent at doing the bad stuff. Recently, he's been talking about, this in regards to immigration. Like, I will deport people faster and stick people in prison quicker. That's the liberal promise. Because again, liberals do not want change. They can't imagine a better world. And that's why you'll find yourself agreeing with liberals on a lot of stuff. But then in terms of the solution, they don't have one, or their expectations are in the gutter. They also take it upon themselves to become defense lawyers for Joe Biden. Joe Biden, need I remind you, is someone who's had a career of being insanely racist, working with segregationists, being very pro-Israel, being like the main architect of the crime bill, which tripled the US prison population, took a racist criminal justice system and made it more racist. That's Joe Biden, right? And he's been an absolutely terrible president. And when I talk about like managing stuff, Joe Biden takes over from Donald Trump and he basically does the same stuff. Look at the stuff he's wanted to do with immigration recently. That is basically what Donald Trump was doing, right? Joe Biden barely even took steps to reverse Trump's policies because, again, liberals don't care. Even going back to Obama-style policies, Joe Biden doesn't want to do because he just wants to manage the US. He wants to manage. There is no version of a future that he can think of. There is no change to the US status quo because that's who Joe Biden is and that's who liberals are. So that's the ideological framework we're working with now. Now, Jon Stewart, like I said, more of like a lib leftist where he does actually want proper solutions to the problems. He doesn't want to be the middle manager. He comes back to host The Daily Show. And what I'm going to do for you now, I'm going to play you a couple clips which have sent liberal Twitter into a bit of a meltdown. And mainly it's focusing on Donald Trump and Joe Biden being the two oldest candidates for president ever for their respective parties, beating the record set by themselves last election. And just asking, you know, is this a good thing for democracy? Then both these people are bad candidates. And in terms of like Joe Biden, most people don't even want him to run for president in his own party. And we're acting like this is just like a fundamental thing that can't change. Again, liberal mentality. They can't imagine that there could be someone better than Joe Biden. You know, he's president. He was the vice president before. Basically, his right to run again. Even though he was like kind of promising he wouldn't run for a second term. So I'll play some of the clips. There probably won't be any video because I don't want to get copyright striked by Comedy Central or whatever.
These two candidates, they are both similarly challenged. And it is not crazy to think that the oldest people in the history of the country to ever run for president might have some of these challenges. Now, Democrats will say that any criticism like this, especially of Biden, is unfair. Of course, when it comes to Republicans, they've got a different strategy for their 77-year-old candidate.
Well, first of all, Donald Trump is not an old man.
He's an old man. He is objectively an old man. That is not being ageist. That is being human lifespanist. We have two candidates who are chronologically outside the norm of anyone who has run for the presidency in this country, in the history of this country. They are the oldest people ever to run for president, breaking by only 4 years the record that they set. The last time they ran, they are at the age, they are objectively old. They're at the age, there are no more age-related milestones to hit. They're both stretching the limits of being able to handle the toughest job in the world. What's crazy is thinking that we're the ones, as voters, who must silence concerns and criticisms. It is the candidate's job to assuage concerns, not the voter's job not to mention them.
So yeah, hopefully I have just played you clips of him outlining like both the cope from the Republicans and the Democrats about Joe Biden and Donald Trump not being, you know, old men, which they are, and just outlining how, you know, both of them are bad and the candidates should be making the case for themselves that they are still competent and they are mentally fit to run the country. It shouldn't be on Democratic voters to pretend there's nothing wrong with Biden. And you've seen this recently. I have a couple examples. I went back to get these just before the video. People basically saying we're bullying Biden or dunking on his poor memory loss. So here's one. You're so funny dunking on an 81-year-old's poor memory like you don't use a password manager, lose your phone anywhere from 6 to 30 times a day, and dig the pizza box out of the garbage to check bake time. But he's the president. Okay, where is your left AirPod? Someone else, Biden has a stutter. If you make fun of him having a stutter, something he's lived with and largely overcome to eventually be president, you're not only a bully and a jerk, but woefully ignorant. Again, when I'm talking about liberals, those are liberals right there, right? We're bad. We're bad. You're a bully to the president. You're bullying the president right now if you point out that he doesn't seem mentally fit for office anymore because he's an old man. And it's not even just because he's an old man, right? Because Donald Trump seems like more with it than Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders is older than Joe Biden, and he seems like his brain is still working. There's lots of people who are old and even older than Joe Biden who do seem like maybe they could do a better job running for president because their mental faculties are still like relatively in check. And that's the sad thing about getting older. We all age differently. Our brains all change differently. If you're my age, you might still have some surviving grandparents who are entering their 90s. And yeah, you can see like cognitive decline. It's a sad fact of life. Doesn't mean you shouldn't point it out. And what is this weird defense that, yeah, you might be forgetful in your own life? We're not the president. If I forget where my left AirPod is, that's fine. If I forget loads of stuff, that's fine. I'm an average guy. I'm not the most powerful man in the most powerful country that has ever existed in history. Why are you defending this guy? Why? Have some standards, liberals, please. And don't worry, that was actually before this clip. So yeah, there was an absolute meltdown on liberal Twitter that Jon Stewart dare say anything bad about Biden. And also, can I just make one point clear as well? What he said about Biden, even in reference to the Israel stuff, like, wasn't even that scathing. I can't imagine how these guys would hold up to someone actually doing like a massive critique of him. So Keith Olbermann, who used to do like this cringe, was it a news show, YouTube show called The Resistance when like Trump was president, because all these people think they're in the fucking newsroom or think they're in the West Wing, saying, if you're wondering how Jon Stewart's bullshit, both sides this return went over, the anti-Semite racist conspiracy nuts loved it because Elon Musk said he liked it. But Elon Musk is just basically saying that, right? After 9 years away, there's nothing else to say to the both sides is fraud. Jon Stewart, why is he a fraud? Bashing Biden. Except please make it another 9 years. Like, why can't people criticize Biden? Why? Why can't Jon Stewart do that? Why does he become a fraud? Because he's criticized Biden. How much good has Jon Stewart done in the world compared to you, Keith? Keith, when you've said stuff like this, I wouldn't be drawing attention to yourself when criticizing Jon Stewart. Underneath the Daily Show post, loads of people saying, wow, you basically say because Biden is old, he's as bad as Trump. Why do we never learn as a country? Sorry, but I won't be watching you either. Biden's aged the lowest hanging fruit of comedy right now. Maybe John's rusty and not up to the challenge. What the F is this? Your first day back and you're both siding Biden and Trump on age? Seriously? Did you write this yourself? Clearly, I got my hopes up way too high, but your return to the Daily Show would help improve the discourse and the lead up to the election. This doesn't help anyone. Helping fascism return isn't funny. Pass. This is exactly the kind of both sides nonsense from your era people were afraid you were going to do when you came back. Dear John, please spend some time studying propaganda. You let yourself be distracted from much more urgent issues, such as Trump's celebration of political violence, Project 25, and GOP attacks on women's rights, LGBT rights, public schools, and social security. So this is something liberals always do, right? It's like you can't point out our guy is bad because the other people are worse. They've been doing it for ages. I remember I made a video before the 2020 election, which I feel like is going to age even better, where I said you didn't have to vote for Joe Biden because what they're going to do forever is just say, you must vote for our terrible candidate because the other one is worse. And also, let me know what you guys think. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Would it have been better for the US if Trump won the last election in terms of like people realizing you can't just run like liberal centrist candidates who won't do anything and expect to like keep winning elections forever? Because I feel like now it's even more bleak if Trump wins, like the context and climate of the world. It will be worse for the US, Trump getting in now, than it would be if he won in 2020. Because now Democrats are doing this again. And here's the thing as well. Biden doesn't have to run for president. Biden doesn't have to be the nominee. And they're saying John should be focusing all his efforts on Trump. But what I would say, and what John even says, is that, you know, he's basically more scared now because Biden's such a terrible candidate that he wants Biden not to run so people can beat Trump. A lot of the criticism of Biden is coming because we know that if he runs, Trump is going to win. So if you know Trump is going to beat him, why don't you run someone else, especially when polling shows you that basically anyone else but Biden has a better chance of winning? But instead they're like, oh, don't bully the president. Don't point out any flaws because that helps Trump. Trump doesn't need any help. Most polls have him beating Biden. Biden is crazy unpopular because he's a terrible president. Everyone hates him apart from like 35-year-old liberals. So yeah, run someone else, and that's what Jon is criticizing him for. Like, in a democracy, you are allowed to challenge the president. I don't know why these people act like he's king, but more, I was looking forward to it. Trashing POTUS. Had to turn it off. Not funny to me, given what is at stake and what the GOP are getting away with. I knew him coming back would mean he'd just be another left-wing Biden basher. Not tuning in, do one. Jon Stewart learned nothing from his fascist enabling shtick 8 years ago. So irresponsible, Jon. Shame on you. I was hoping for better from you. Just another media hack spewing both sides propaganda. Jon Stewart still has it in terms of being funny and entertaining, but the political content of this monologue is basically the New York Times op-ed page in TV form. Both sides are not, in fact, equally bad, which completely missed the point in my opinion. And here's another point I want to talk about. Ukraine flag moment. Jon Stewart disappears for years to come back and shits on Joe Biden. I've seen this before, and it's why we got Trump. I ain't doing this again. Unfollow. So, if you guys aren't old enough, you might not remember this, because I'm well aware that like this might feel like ancient history to people now. But one thing liberals like to do, and this is a perfect jumping off point for this, one thing liberals like to do is when their candidate loses, they blame the left. So, with Hillary Clinton, who did they blame for her losing? It was Bernie Sanders' fault, because Bernie bros didn't vote for Clinton. Even though most Bernie Sanders supporters did vote for Clinton and actually voted for her in greater numbers than Clinton supporters in 2008 who voted for Obama. Which is absolutely hilarious. That is actually the truth when their narrative is, oh my god, leftists were so butthurt they didn't vote for Clinton. Because they did vote for Clinton. But what happens is they don't want to admit their own fault, so they turn around and say, it's Bernie's fault for actually running in a primary, like an open primary. So it was absolutely fair game. And here's the thing, if you guys remember as well, Bernie Sanders was pretty tame with his criticism, more tame because he was scared of Donald Trump winning. And that's what he did in 2020 as well. He was too afraid of Donald Trump winning, so he purposefully neutered himself on the primary stage and on the debate stage because he was scared if he went too far, which would actually really hurt Biden and Clinton, right? So this narrative that Clinton lost because of Bernie is a popular one, but also a wrong one. And also Bernie campaigned for Clinton like crazy as well. But they need a scapegoat because liberals can't accept any fault in themselves. Joe Biden is perfect. You can't criticize him. Clinton was perfect. And if you criticize them, you're just a left-wing hater who actually likes Donald Trump or something. When the criticism comes from, oh my god, you're going to lose to Donald Trump, please don't run this stupid campaign again, let's have anyone else, let's actually push a vision for the future, and liberals just want to stick their head in the sand. Blue MAGA is an accurate description from people like this who can't handle the most mildest of critiques of someone like Joe Biden or Clinton. People having a normal one, and yeah, Ukraine flag again. Jon Stewart, the one old guy is pro-democracy, the other old guy is literally a fascist. We're seriously going to 2016, both sides this again. What the F is wrong with you? Jesus Christ, The Daily Show is a fascist enabling show. That is just like, man, like, liberals are just so infuriating. I was tweeting someone today that, like, I hate liberals more than any other political group after fascist. The problem with liberals is that they recognize the problem, right? Donald Trump is a fascist. And they don't think anything about the system enabling him. It's just that Donald Trump is a fascist. Joe Biden isn't a fascist. Therefore, you must vote for Joe Biden and never say anything bad about him, because if you don't, you're going to help a fascist, right? Because that's their simplistic mindset towards this stuff. Like I said, you could say that like leftists are criticizing Joe Biden because we want someone else better who will actually beat Donald Trump because we're scared of fascism, or leftists are trying to tell you that this system is designed so you just get two shit choices all the time who are going to manage or expand this capitalist hegemony of the United States at the expense of you. And it doesn't really matter who's in charge. Yeah, it might be a bit worse with Donald Trump, as you see with the Trump administration and then the Biden administration. On most issues, they're pretty similar, especially when it comes to both immigration and foreign policy. They're pretty similar. The only thing is, Donald Trump is more unstable because that's just his character. But if it was Ron DeSantis who was, the front runner, and if Ron DeSantis became president, his presidency would look very much like Joe Biden's presidency in many, many ways. The main thing, of course, which liberals often agree with us on, is the social stuff, which is, LGBT rights, women's rights, all that stuff. And that is like fair enough, but it's not like Joe Biden has done much to protect that at all either, because women's rights have been stripped away under his presidency, and he's barely done anything to fight it. And yes, do you know what? Democrats actually like that, because what's his main campaign issue now? It's Roe. What a gift. What a gift. He doesn't even have to do anything now. Just say, oh, I will fight to restore Roe. That's his campaign now. And if you don't think Democrats don't love this, they do, because they love the culture war as much as the Republicans, because they don't have to promise you anything. Just, oh, we will bring in gun control. Maybe. But then it actually comes to the votes, we'll never get anything passed. Oh, we're going to, enshrine women's rights into law. Oh, wait, I can't do that anymore. And it's just going to go on forever, because if Joe Biden wins, Donald Trump is obviously not going to run again, probably, if he even lives long enough. And what's going to happen next time is you're going to have like Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris versus Ron DeSantis. And what's going to happen again? They're going to promise you nothing and say, well, the other guy is terrible. The other guy is bad. So vote for us to preserve democracy. All the while, everything in the world just goes even more to shit. And climate change, which is already very visible, is going to get so much worse. And that's the thing as well with liberals. Climate change you can't ignore. You can't just keep ignoring forever and be like, well, Joe Biden is bad or not perfect, but at least he's not a fascist. Because there's going to come a point where when Florida is going underwater and parts of New York, it's going to be too late. And that's what we're trying to warn you all the time. You need someone who's actually going to promise you something to change, but that's why this system is just absolutely trash and why leftists always attack it and attack both these candidates as the face of this system. Just one more to end it. I think you guys will like this. Jon Stewart is 20 years younger than Joe Biden, but they look the same age. I'm just adding that to the discourse. Do they look the same age? Seriously? Jon Stewart looks very good for his age, by the way. I was thinking this because he showed a picture of him 20 years ago, and I was like, you look better now. He is a good-looking older man. And for these people to say he looks like Joe Biden who looks like old man Captain America, is absolutely insane. But again, that is the liberal cope. That is the liberal cope. Like, I'm going to go now attack Jon Stewart. And loads of people were saying, like, Jon Stewart's too old to host the Daily Show now, trying to, like, reverse Uno card his criticism of Biden. And what I just hope this might make people realise, like liberal people, like maybe you watch this channel. I doubt it because I'm a communist, but maybe you do. And you're like liberal. You believe in the status quo. You believe in US imperialism being better for the world because the alternatives are so scary and bad. You believe that, Joe Biden is actually an alright president. I've seen some people say Joe Biden's a good president. Like, he's surprising. What's surprising about him? I didn't have high hopes for him, but I'm surprised he's even worse than I thought. I would say he's worse than Obama at this point. And Obama was a terrible president. Joe Biden's presidency is essentially, in my mind, Trump's second term in nearly every aspect, apart from maybe not attacking LGBT and women's rights, but just letting Republicans do that while you act like you aren't the fucking president of the United States and you can't do anything. The Democrats acting like they can never do anything, and they don't do anything. The parliamentarian says they can't do anything, and then asking for your vote every single time, acting like they will do something. Come on, you have to realise this is a con at this point. And also, you saw this liberal mentality come out when all the Israel stuff was kicking off, and they're like, you will still vote for Joe Biden. Like, you got to vote for Joe Biden. And I would say if I was American, I wouldn't vote for Joe Biden. Like, just keeping it real. And in the UK, we might have our election this year as well. I ain't voting for Labour. Like, I don't care. Like, to me, it's no different. Tories, Labour, it's the same. To me, with American politics, I just go back to my 2020 video where I said, it's always going to be another Trump. There's always going to be another, oh, he is worse. And is that the bar for politics forever? He is worse than me, so vote for me forever. And what, you're just going to keep voting for right-wing Democrats for the rest of your life? And what? What's going to change? Absolutely nothing. It's just going to get worse, but at a slower rate than the Republicans. Again, I don't even know. Let me know in the comments. Do you think it would have been better for American democracy if Donald Trump actually won his second term, so the Democrats get the message that, yeah, really old as fuck centrists who had their heyday in the 1990s aren't viable political candidates anymore? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.